Welcome back to Global Media Network. Educate, enlighten, entertain. Passionate World Talk Radio Network is a wholly owned subsidiary of Global Media Network. And today on Lest We Forget, with your host Lillian Cauldwell, we're going to talk about the Constitution of the United States. Lately, in the newspapers, and through the various news organizations on TV and streaming, it's been mentioned that former President Donald Trump wants to get rid of the Constitution, and many of his constituents agree. However, before he can do that, I think it's time to do a review on what is the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and why it is important for us as a country to recognize, A, that Donald Trump should not get rid of the Constitution, and B, that it will severely affect our right, our individual rights. In since 1791, on December 15th, the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution were adopted as a single unit, and it constitutes a collection of mutually reinforcing guarantees of every citizen of the United States, our individual rights, and of limitations placed on federal and state governments. Think about that. Individual rights and limitation on federal and state governments. Where did our forefathers get the idea from? From the Magna Carta that was put together in 1215. It was considered the English Bill of Rights. The struggle against king and parliament by its citizens. And it also recognized a broad concept of equality. And our forefathers, took those same thoughts and brought it to the colonies. The Bill of Rights also has a binding legal force. Acts of Congress in conflict with them may be voided by the U.S. Supreme Court, which is the final word on the laws in this country, when the question of constitutionality of such acts arise in litigation. What is the Constitution? The Constitution forbids suspension of the writ of habeas corpus, except in cases of rebellion or invasion. We're all familiar with President Abraham Lincoln, who got rid of habeas corpus during the war between the states, the Civil War. He decided it was his word and his judgment as President of the United States to do that. This suspension of habeas corpus requires that all crimes against the United States will be tried by a jury in the state where the crime is committed. It limits the definition, trial, and punishment of treason. Aaron Burr comes to mind. He was accused of treason against the United States. Prohibits titles of nobility. Well, we like to believe that there are no dukes or earls running around, although several of the movie figures long for a title, like Dom or Earl or sir. They don't see anything wrong with that, to distinguish themselves from the masses, as they would put it. It also, you do not have to take religious tests to get elected into office. And guarantees a Republican form of government in every state, and assures each citizen the privilege and immunities of the citizens of our states. So that is what the Constitution is. And the Bill of Rights are the amendments that have been put into place by our forefathers to protect us from our enemies. And most of the time, our enemies are ourselves. And the Constitution has put down rules and laws restraining how much power the federal government has. Back in the day, the Senate refused to submit James Madison Amendment protecting religious liberty, freedom of the press, and trial by jury against violation by the states. Under the First Amendment, Congress can make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting its free exercise or abridging freedom of speech or press or the right to assemble and petition for redress of grievances. Hostility to standing armies found expression in the Second Amendment's guarantee of the people's rights to bear arms, and the Third Amendment prohibition of the involuntary quartering of soldiers in private houses. The Fourth Amendment secures the people against unreasonable searches and seizures and forbids the issuance of warrants except upon probable cause and directed to specific persons and places. The Fifth Amendment requires grand jury indictment and prosecution for major crimes and prohibits double jeopardy for a single offense. It provides that no person shall be compelled to testify against himself and forbids the taking of life, liberty, or property without due process of law and the taking of private property for public use without just compensation. The Sixth Amendment, an accused person is to have a speedy public trial by jury, to be informed of the nature of the accusation, to be confronted with prosecution witnesses, and to have the assistance of counsel. The Seventh Amendment formally established the right to trial by jury in civil cases. Excessive bail or fines and cruel and unusual punishment are forbidden by the Eighth Amendment. The Ninth Amendment protects residential rights of the people. And by the 10th, powers not delegated to the United States are reserved to the states or the people. After the end of the Civil War, 1861 to 1865, slavery was abolished by the 13th Amendment, and the 14th Amendment in 1868 declared that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to its jurisdiction are citizens thereof. It forbids the states to abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States or to provide any person of life, liberty, or property without the process of law. In the early 20th century, the Supreme Court used the Due Process Clause to gradually incorporate or apply against the states most of the guarantees contained in the Bill of Rights, which formerly had been understood to apply only against the federal government. Thus, the Due Process Clause finally made effective the major portions of Madison's unaccepted 1789 proposal. So the next time when you hear former President Trump or any other politician tell you the Constitution is outdated and needs to be removed permanently, just remember that this document protects you and your rights, plus a plethora of other indignities that could be suffered by you, the individual, should they been removed from your ability to invoke them. Thank you very much for joining me today. You can hear this on youtube.com _ PWR Network _ PW Talk Radio. You can hear it at passionateworldtalkradio.com. All major social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And please let us know. Text us at 484-364-1032 what you would like to hear on Lest We Forget -historical. It means more than atrocities being repeated continually. It means injustices or something that you're not aware of but happens continuously or without your knowledge. The only way you can control how you as a citizen of the United States is to be treated, is to be informed, and to be knowledgeable. So keep yourself knowledgeable and recommend different topics for your host, Lillian S. Cauldwell, to discuss on Lest We Forget -historical. Have a great weekend and stay warm.